Hi everyone, I'm Elena. Welcome back to another reading journal video. There's going to be a lot going on in this video. I will be showing you my 2025 reading journal, the whole setup, a flip through, the details of each spread. I've also got some freebies for you, links to my favorite supplies, and I thought we would start with my general tips for someone just starting out with their reading journal. This is only my second year making one, so it's not like I'm an expert or anything, but I did pick up some tips last year, and I went into the journal process this year much differently, knowing what I know now. If you are a reading journal expert already and you just want to see my journal and get some inspiration for your own work, go ahead and skip forward to the flip through. And for anyone who is new to this, maybe creating your first reading journal or switching it up from last year, here are 4 steps that will help you get started on making your very own reading journal. Step 1 is to self-reflect. First and foremost, look inside, look deep in your own heart. Are you a huge, crazy perfectionist? If you mess up a spread or accidentally skip a month, is it going to cause you to give up on the journal completely? Or are you not bothered at all if something gets misspelled or a page gets smeared or things like that happen? Personally, I fall slightly more on the perfectionist side, but knowing where you're at will help you decide what type of reading journal is going to work best for you. Do some reflecting on what the purpose of the reading journal is for you. Where do you fall on the functional versus decorative scale? Is it mainly about record keeping for you and you want to have all of your reading stats and data right at your fingertips? Are you looking to improve your critical reading ability so that you can write better reviews, retain what you've read, maybe deconstruct what you liked or didn't about a certain book? Are you looking for a creative outlet? Do you enjoy scrapbooking, doodling, cozy hobbies? Or is the purpose of your reading journal to encourage you to read outside of your comfort zone? Maybe you want to include a lot of challenges and track different reading prompts throughout the year. Or it might be a combination of some or all of those. For myself, I think I'm mainly interested in the record keeping and also the creative outlet. So I fall kind of in the middle on that functional versus decorative scale. And if you do want to include some decorative elements, reflect on what types of decorations are calling out to you specifically. Are you a stickers girl like myself? Do you like stamps, collages, coloring, or maybe you're really good at drawing and you have really pretty handwriting, so you plan to hand draw the whole journal? If so, I am jealous. If you're like me and you like something decorative, but you really can't draw very well, printables can be a great way to get around that. Our description box has a link to a Google Doc where we have a bunch of free printables that we've created for my reading journal, and you're welcome to download them and use them in your journal too. Also, Erin and I just launched our very own Etsy shop, Green Valley Printables, where you can find even more designs to decorate your journal and keep up with your stats. So check for the link in the description box for that. On to step 2. Step 2 is make some decisions. You're going to need to decide on the type of journal that you want to use, what size works best for you, how much page space you need, whether you prefer a pre-made journal or a dot grid that is blank and ready for you to get creative on, which is what I use. You can decide whether you want a journal that is more chronological or more freeform. A chronological journal typically includes yearly spreads, monthly spreads, and sometimes individual book review spreads as well. That's the type I'll be doing this year. And a freeform journal typically contains no monthly spreads, maybe a couple year-long trackers. You may or may not journal every book that you read, and you sort of just journal when the mood strikes. If you're a perfectionist and you're worried that making everything perfect in the journal might prohibit you from actually keeping up with it, it might be a good idea to go with the freeform route and just give yourself more freedom to just journal when you feel like it and not hit every single book or every single month. Or if you really like to track your stats like me, the chronological journal might be a better choice for you. Once you have a direction in mind, it's time to decide what spreads you definitely want to include. Go ahead and make a list of every stat that you'd like to track, every type of spread that you'd like. Are you going to review books individually? Are you going to create decorative spreads? Will there be a cover page for each month? Things like that. Make a list. You can always change it up, add things, take stuff away later. That sort of bleeds us into step 3, which is to plan out your spreads and get inspired. This is the fun part. I mean, you're already doing it by watching this video, so I recommend you get as much inspiration as you can. Watch YouTube videos of other people's reading journals, check Pinterest, Instagram, and look at your current crafting stash for inspiration. A lot of us that enjoy the odd crafting hobby, I collect random stickers, washi tapes, pretty little papers, whatever crosses my path. So maybe look at what stuff you already have to inspire some decorations for your spreads. When you're browsing social media for inspiration, go ahead and save anything that looks inspiring to you. Maybe you don't like the type of spread, but you really like the font that they used for their header, or the color scheme, or the specific washi tape design. Collect images of all of those spreads and use features like YouTube playlists or the Instagram saved lists, a Pinterest board, something where you can keep them all together and easily scroll through when you need some inspiration. At this point, I highly recommend using a separate journal, just like a random notebook, to plan out each spread. Just roughly draw what the spread is going to look like on the page. This helps me a lot, especially when I start to feel intimidated by making those first marks on the page in my actual journal. I find that if I have a visual to reference that I've drawn out, just messy, scribble it down in another notebook, I'm able to overcome that mark paralysis a lot easier. Of course, that takes extra time, and if you're not a perfectionist, then feel free to skip that step and just move on to step 4, which is to gather your materials and get started. Really, all you need is a planner and a pen. Anything beyond that is extra, and I do like some extras. If you'd like to see my favorite planning supplies, check the description box for links to some of the basic things I use all the time, and watch our last video, which was a stationery haul, for a lot of fun extras. And then it's time to start journaling. So let's take a look at my 2025 reading journal. I'm so happy with how it came out. I hope you guys like it. And before we do that, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you'll be starting a reading journal this year, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. So this journal is from Archer and Olive. It is their A5 Storybook journal in the color olive green. I think it is gorgeous, and I'm so excited to show you everything that I've made this year. I'll be flipping through each spread. I'll show you how I created each one, and I'll tell you a little about the stats and how each spread functions. I chose not to stick to a specific theme this year, mainly because I'm personally more inspired when I switch it up and get to try new looks and techniques throughout the year. I also hope this will give you more ideas for things like fonts, headers, functionality, all that good stuff, since there's a lot of variety in my journal. First up, we have my cover page. I didn't do a cover page last year, and I really wanted to do something a little special this year, and I did film the entire setup of this spread for you. I started with this gingham pattern, and I had seen someone on YouTube talking about how a gingham pattern is so easy to make. You just skip every other line. It's very simple. So of course I immediately made a mistake here on the left side of the page when I went too high on one of my stripes, but no big deal. I can just cut that out later and you'll never know by the end. I do actually think that this pattern is really easy. It reminds me of a flannel themed spread that I did for November in last year's reading journal, and this is definitely simpler than that. My lines aren't completely straight, but I'm imagining that gingham is fabric, so it's moving across the page and it doesn't need to be completely straight. I think this pattern is very forgiving. Next, I outlined this little frame shape that looks like it's sort of hanging onto a fabric wall. So once I've finished outlining that frame, I wanted to turn the left side of the page into a little pocket. This first page in a journal is always kind of tricky because the binding is not close to the seam or the crease of the paper. So it's always a little wonky and you kind of have just a wasted front page. So I decided to cut off the top part using my X-Acto knife and then glue the bottom part that I had colored gingham just around the edges so that I have a little pocket now and I can just keep a ruler in there or scraps or stickers or really anything. I think this is a really useful way to use those crappy first 2 pages that you can't really do much with. Next, I took my X-Acto knife to the frame that I had drawn and I cut out the inside of it. A little messily, but it totally works. And then behind the frame, I've placed 2 stickers. I think these look so cute back there. It's like they're hanging on the page behind this one. And as you'll see in my other spreads, I do love a metallic gold effect. Then I just stamped 2025 at the bottom and voila, cover page. Next, we have the book shelfies page. A few years ago, Mandy Journals popularized this book shelfie format, and I see everyone doing it on YouTube, but everyone else seems to hand draw theirs, and there's just no way that I could draw well enough to make a pretty spread for this. So instead, we created a printable that I could just print out and color in, and I am obsessed with these. This is actually 3 separate printables that we put together. The one on the left is a fantasy theme, so you've got a little dragon and a sword, a potion, a crystal ball, and a little cat. This one is colored in to look like my cat, of course. And this fantasy theme is one of our free printables. Our other free printables include a romance theme, a plant lover theme, and a dark academia theme. And those are all available for free in the Google Doc linked in our description box. And then here on the right, we've created a new one that is sci-fi themed, and I plan to do a lot of fantasy and sci-fi reading this year, so it only felt appropriate to choose this one to add to my page. Each bookshelf has 50 books to color in on it, so by using 2, it will help me get to my reading goal, which is 100 books. This sci-fi themed bookshelfie is available in our Etsy shop, along with one that is horror or thriller themed, a mystery theme, a cozy cottagecore theme, and a bunch more. And then in the middle, this is a little connector piece that we designed to just sort of connect the 2 bookshelves, and I'm also using mine as a key. So down here, I've colored each of these 5 books with a different marker, and then I've put a little tiny initial on each one. So as I'm reading throughout the year, I will color in each of these books. So yellow means hardback, blue means paperback, A means audiobook, E means ebook, and C is a combo or a tandem read, whatever you want to call it. And one trick that I like to do when I have a spread like this where there's a specific color that I'm going to need to use on that spread is I will wrap a piece of washi tape around the marker that I'm going to be using so that I always remember which one I need and I don't have to swatch all my markers every time I'm ready to color in a book. We also offer all of these shelfie designs with blank spines. If you prefer to write in the name of the book on the spine, we created a version where it doesn't have these cute little details on each spine. So there's plenty of room for you to write in the name of the books that you read. For me personally, I don't like my handwriting that much and I'd rather have the cute details to color in instead, so I keep the details on the spines. I used an X-Acto knife to cut out the inside of the window and I put behind it a clipping from a magazine that I just thought looked cool here. You could totally just color in the window if you wanted, but I thought this looked fun and just kind of gave a little something different to the spread. And lastly, I will tell you that I printed these shelfies on cardstock because I like to color them in with alcohol-based markers, and the alcohol-based markers will bleed through the page. So I prefer to print them on cardstock so I can color to my heart's content and not worry about bleed through, and then I just paste it into the journal. I love how those markers blend together so easily and don't show streaks. They're just so nice to color with. So throughout the year, I'll be able to track my progress towards my reading goal of 100 books. And when I'm done, I'll be able to see a breakdown by color of which formats I was most drawn to this year. Moving on to my books read page. I think this turned out so cool. So for the design on this page, I used this gold washi tape that I got from Amazon. This was in my Stationery Haul last month. And I measured how much space it would take up on the edge of the page, put it down, and then outlined it in gold gel pen. At the top, these are my new stamps that are also from that Stationery Haul. And I just used a regular Pigma Micron to draw in my column titles. Then the middle is a Dutch door, because this way I'll have plenty of space to write every single book that I read this year. I used a Tombow to highlight every other line, and even if I only write on every other line, there's still over 100 lines here total, so there will be plenty of room for me to write down all of the books and what month I read them in and what the star rating was. I just used scissors to cut off the edge of the pages and then an X-Acto knife to cut as close to the binding as possible and pull off that extra page space so that it would reveal the edges and the design of the page. Next, we have my 25 books in 2025. These are my priority reads this year. Will I be reading all 25? I don't know, guys. Don't hold me to it, okay? I'm gonna try. I genuinely feel excited to read all of these, so maybe I will, but 25 books is a lot. It's literally a quarter of my reading goal, so we'll have to see. We did make a super cute shelfie printable, and these are available for free in the printables document if you're interested in printing one of these out for yourself. It's just like the other one where you can color in the spines, and of course we do offer the blank spines for this if you'd rather write the titles on each of the book spines. But I just printed this out on cardstock and colored it in, and then pasted it in the journal. And here is my key at the bottom. It's the same color scheme that I used for the other book shelfie, and this time I'll be tracking the star rating of each of these 25 books. I picked each one of these expecting that they would be, solid reads. If not 5 stars, then at least 4. So it'll be interesting to see if I'm right and if I'm able to predict what books I'm going to love this year or not. On this side of the page, I printed out a tiny version of each of the covers of the books I want to read. And if you are wondering how I did that, we did put out a video called How I Use Canva in my reading journal, and I show you exactly how I make these little tiny book covers. And we might create a separate video where I go through all 25 of these books that are on my TBR this year, but just to point out a few that I'm especially excited for: Oathbound, which is the 3rd book in the Legendborn Cycle series; Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, which is the 3rd book in the Emily Wilde series; Nettle and Bone, which will be my first T. Kingfisher; Intermezzo, because I always love Sally Rooney; and of course Onyx Storm. This comes out soon, and yeah, I'm definitely going to need to know what happens after that insane cliffhanger from Iron Flame. On the next page, we have my anticipated reads. So these are new releases that are coming out this year, and I just want to keep up with the release dates for these. I didn't make a spread like this last year, and I was constantly looking up the same books over and over, trying to figure out when they were supposed to come out, how much longer I had to wait. So this year, I'm going to track it in my reading journal. For the design of this page, I used this gorgeous sort of artsy Van Gogh washi tape that I got from the washi tape shop. The header is stamped onto scrap bullet journal paper, and these gold stickers are from the Whimsical Botanics set from, is it Notebook Therapy? It is Notebook Therapy. These watercolor dots are from Journal Say, and I wrote the shorthand of each month on them to keep track of which is which. And then at the last second, I decided to outline the boxes with this sort of like wiggly, scraggly pattern instead of a nice sharp line. It's just fun to mix it up, and I think this looks more organic and just adds a little something special to the page. And as for the functionality, as you can see on the left side, we have a lot more books written. I guess things just haven't been announced yet for the second half of the year, but as more books do get announced throughout the year, I can add them in over here, and I think this spread will be really useful. Next, we have my series tracker, and this is such an upgrade from my series tracker page from last year's journal. I ended up abandoning that one because I really didn't like the design. It just wasn't working for me. But this one I think turned out so cool. I mean, it's simple for sure, but it just, I don't know, something about it feels really special. So these vine stickers are from Journal Say, and I just ran them off the page and then trimmed the excess. And for the letters, I drew bubble letters on a piece of kind of like craft style paper and gave them a little 3D moment here and then just cut around each one. For me, this is impressive. Anytime you see me draw a font that is not just my normal handwriting, that's a big deal. I think they came out really good considering this is not really my strong suit. For each series that I start this year, I'm going to write the name of the series over here, and then there's a square checkbox for each book in that series. So I do want to get further in the Red Rising saga this year. Dread Nation is on my TBR stat. I gotta read Deathless Divide next week. It's gotta happen. And of course, you already know I'm super excited for Emily Wilde. You can see I tried to highlight the series title here with a pink Tombow, and it immediately smeared. I was so mad, and they don't normally smear on me, so I don't know why that happened, but I just basically gave up and then didn't highlight these other two. I could always go back and do it later, but what if they smear? I don't know. It's not that big of a deal, right? Next, I have a double spread, the book bingo board and the DNF graveyard. So starting over here with the book bingo board, I made these cute little rounded corner elements. I used my circle template to create a curved edge on the corner of some scrap printer paper, and then I just colored them in black or blue. And on the blue ones, I used a silver gel pen, and on the black ones, I used a gold gel pen just to add some fun detail. I saw a design like this on Pinterest and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I wondered if it was something I could pull off, and luckily the shapes are simple enough that I think it looks pretty good. I really like how it came out. These stickers are from the Into the Library sticker set from Notebook Therapy. And for the titles, I just printed them off of the computer for Book Bingo and DNF Graveyard. If you are fancy and you can draw in these cool Gothic font, you go for it because I'm impressed. But personally, I knew I couldn't pull that off and I just wanted it to look really clean. So I just printed them off and taped them into the journal. And for my book bingo board, we have a template for this linked in the Google Doc if you'd like to create your own. I had a lot of fun with this last year, and I definitely learned some things. Last year, I used a Dutch door for my book bingo board, so it was coming out from the center seam, and I had trimmed it not quite to the end of the page. So whenever I turned the page to my book bingo page, it would flap open, and that just annoyed me, and I didn't like that. So this time, I decided to print it out and glue it in so that it could open from the top. This way it won't just flap open on its own. This is much cleaner, I think, and easier to use. So as I go throughout the year, if I read a book that matches one of these prompts, I will color in the square on this cover. Then below, when you open it up, it has all of the prompts again, and here I will print out a mini version of the cover of that book and paste it over its prompt. So if I read a book with a one-word title, I'll color in the box with one-word title, and then I'll flip it open and paste in the cover of that book, whatever book I read that had one word in the title. Honestly, I could have just left this one underneath blank, but I find when I do that, like last year, I was constantly flipping back and forth because I was paranoid that I would put the book cover on the wrong spot and mess up my chances at bingo, and we can't have that. So I just went ahead and reprinted it to make it easier on myself. And the way I put this in was by printing the top one out and then cutting a little extra paper at the top, folding that over, and gluing the bottom piece on the inside. Then the whole thing got glued into the journal, and voila. On the opposite page, the DNF graveyard, I'm really happy with how this came out too. I made these little headstones, and throughout the year when I DNF a book, I will write the name of that book in these headstones. Last year I only DNF'd 3, but you never know. I could have some trouble this year and end up DNFing a lot more books, so I gave myself 6 headstones to start with. I will say last year I made really cute little grass pieces to go at the bottom of each headstone. I didn't do that this year because I felt like the green would just stand out too much on the page. There's no other green anywhere here, so I thought that it might just look weird, but it was my favorite part of the spread last year, and all I did was just scribble some green tombos on cardstock and then cut it out in jagged grass shapes, and it looked really nice. So who knows, I could always add that in later if I want to, zhuzh it up a little bit. On the next page, oh, this is my favorite spread, I think. I'm calling this a mega Dutch door. I've got a bunch of stats that I'm tracking on these pages, but let's start with the design. So I cut down the right side of the first page, the right side of the second page, and then the third page creates the edge of the Dutch door. These edge stickers are both from Journal Say, and all the other stickers are from that whimsical botanics sticker set from Notebook Therapy, and I pretty much decimated that sticker set. I think I used them all by the end of this journal. I think they look so cute together. I love how the layered effect plays out and just gives it some depth to the page, and I'm just obsessed with this spread. I think it turned out so cute. For the headers, I used my new alphabet stamps that are from Notebook Therapy again. Stamped that onto craft paper and pasted it in for each one. And as for what I'm tracking here, this first page, as you can see, are the books that I read each month. And I'm tracking this back 4 years. So the tan color is 2022, the green is 2023, last year is in purple, and this year will be pink. And as I go throughout the year, I will just add in the pink bar up to the number of books that I read each month. And then I'll be able to compare. And I'm hoping to see more patterns emerge. I already can see that it looks like April is a pretty rough reading month for me typically, as well as September seemed to be low. And then last year, March was crazy for me, but not so in the years before. December is always a good reading month for me though. And July, probably because I'm a school librarian and I'm off in the summer. So July, it makes sense that that's a big reading month. I'm excited to see what patterns emerge this year. Next, when I turn the page, I've got my reading goals listed here. So my goals are to read 100 books this year. I read 100 books last year, but I'm not gonna lie, I had to push myself. It was not easy to read 100 books in a year for me. I figure if I don't hit it, then no big deal, I'm just a failure. My second goal is to borrow a physical book from the public library. I said I was gonna do this last year, and I never did. I always get audiobooks and ebooks from the Libby app that borrows from my public library, but I've never done a physical book, and it's time. I want to. I need to save my money, and I'm a big supporter of libraries, obviously. So this year I plan to borrow physical books from the public library. My third goal is to read a book by a local author. And so many of you were helpful on my 2024 reading journal flip through. You guys let me know in the comments several local authors that I should read. And I put 2 of those on my 25 in 2025 list. So I'm excited to read a book by a North Carolinian author this year. Goal number 4 is to read at least 50% diverse stories and authors. I always include a goal to read more diverse stories. I just think it's important to broaden our horizons and get different perspectives, build empathy, explore different worlds, that sort of thing. This year, I did decide to put a number on it and aim for at least 50%. And the way I'll be tracking this is using Storygraph. I do use Goodreads, but I do prefer Storygraph because the stats are better and they allow you to add tags to the books you've read. So I have a tag for diverse stories, and I will add that tag to each book that I read that falls into this category. And then at the end of the year, I'll be able to see if I've reached my goal of 50%. Goal number 5 is to keep up with my Goodreads reviews. I really want to write at least a couple words for each book that I read this year. In the past, I've only done it when the mood struck. I wasn't writing a full review for every book, but I'm realizing that it's really useful to look back on. And a lot of you have been following us on Goodreads, which Erin and I, both of our Goodreads usernames are in the description box if you want to keep up with what we're reading. And this year, I plan to write reviews for every book. So I hope that's helpful for anyone following along. Goal number 6 is to completely finish a sci-fi series. Which sci-fi series? I don't know yet, but I have just been in my sci-fi era recently. Let me know in the comments what your favorite sci-fi books are so that I can get into them this year. Number 7 is to read at least 5 recommendations from Erin. She knows my reading taste so well, and 99% of the time when she recommends a book to me, I'm gonna love it. So I'm gonna make it a point to read at least 5 of her recommendations. And we might buddy read some books this year, at least more than we did last year, so that we can kind of compare our experiences. We do often have different opinions, but sometimes that can be fun. And my last goal is to attend at least one bookish event, maybe a release party or an author signing, just some kind of fun, a meetup at my local bookshop, whatever I can find. I'd like to attend at least one bookish event this year. Over here, I've created a little graph where I can track which days I finished reading a book. I'm just interested to see if there are any patterns. So I created this grid and I've colored in all of the Saturdays and Sundays. At the top are shorthand for each month of the year. And then down the y-axis, I have each day of each month. So as I'm going throughout the year, I'm going to take my little dot markers and put a dot in the square if I finished a book that day. And then at the end of the year, I'll be able to see, okay, do I typically finish my books on the weekend? Is it an early weekday? Is it a Thursday, Friday situation? I just think this could be cool to look back on. Next, we have my most read genres, and I had some trouble when I set this up. I drew it out in pencil first, which I always recommend doing so you don't make a mistake, but it just goes to show you can always make a mistake, especially if you're me. So I meant to have fantasy kind of in the middle with a bigger box, but I accidentally drew a line right here when I wasn't supposed to. So it's fine. I just pivoted and made the bottom box fantasy, and no big deal, moving on. I think it looks great. I will color in 1 square for each book I read in each genre. I based the size of each of these sections off of how many books I read last year in that genre, with a little room to spare, of course, because who knows how it will all shake out this year. And last but not least, I'm going to try the alphabet challenge. I always see people doing an alphabet challenge spread in their reading journals, and I've never attempted it myself. Do I expect to read a book that starts with every single one of these letters? Probably not, but wouldn't it be cool if I did? I mean, there's 26 letters in the alphabet, right? And I'm going to read 100 books, so it's possible. Some of them might be hard though, like X. What's a book that starts with X? I don't know. We'll have to see, but I think it will be fun to look back at the end of the year and see how far I got in this. The next spread we have is Book of the Year bracket. And if you've seen our recent 2024 bracket video, you will know that brackets are my nemesis. I struggle with these brackets. The one that I tried to do in last year's journal was such a fail. It was literally not usable. That's how bad I messed it up. And to be honest, I still don't know if I did this one right. Whatever. I copied this one from one I saw on Pinterest, so it had better be right. It had better work. So on this spread, I've got some cool Galaxy washi tape. Here on the left, I did each color of washi tape as a little pedestal for each month. And the month stickers come from a Winter Journey sticker set from Notebook Therapy. And I backed them on white paper because these stickers are a little bit see-through and they just won't show up against washi on their own. So I backed them on white paper and then glued that to the washi tape strip. Then throughout the year, I will print out the cover of the best book of each month and paste it above the pedestal. And I'll also write them down here on the right side, down these boxes. Then I haven't decided if I'm going to actually play this out as I go throughout the year or if I'll wait till the end of the year and do them all at once. But regardless, whenever I end up doing it, the best book of January and the best book of February will face off, and the best of those books will go in this box. And then the best book of March and the best book of April will go head to head, and the best of those will go in this box. Then the two of them face off, and it will go here until I end up with the top 3. And then I choose one from the 3 to be the best of the year. saying it out loud, it makes sense, right? It's going to work. It's going to work. The rest of the elements on this page were just from a Crayola marker that I used to create the boxes. The gold details are from my gel pen. And this header is fancier cursive than I am capable of writing. I can write in cursive, but it doesn't look like that, I'll tell you what. So I just printed this out on a piece of printer paper and traced over it with my marker. Is that cheating? Yeah, kind of, but who cares? I think it looks really nice. Sometimes you gotta cheat a little bit if you want your reading journal to look pretty. So that's what I did here, and I'm really into the space galaxy theme. And here we are at the final spread. This is the 2025 Best of the Best spread. And first of all, I did kind of a reverse Dutch door here, sort of a window situation, so that when you turn this page, the cutout part makes it so that you can see the title no matter which page you're looking at. And that way I had a lot more space for more books, because these are supposed to be the best books that I read in 2025. So hopefully I get 28 5-star reads. It's definitely possible. Last year, I think I had 22 5-star reads. And what I've done here is placed a little Velcro sticker above each spot, because as I'm reading throughout the year, I will print out the covers of the best books, and I'll be able to use the Velcro to stick them down at whatever place I feel they deserve. And as I read more books, I can rearrange them. I'm really excited about this idea. I think it could be super functional for me, and I love the idea of being able to rearrange them as I go throughout the year, because I do often change my mind about a book. Sometimes when I've just finished reading a book, the dopamine hit of finishing the book and marking it complete on Goodreads makes me overinflate the star rating for that book. Does that happen to anyone else, or is it just me? Because sometimes I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking? That was not 5 stars. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't 5 stars. So I feel like this gives me some flexibility with that. And as time goes on, I can rearrange them. The opposite can happen for me too sometimes. I read a book and I'm like, yeah, that was good. And then a few months later, I realize I'm still thinking about that book, and it must have had a greater impact on me than I first realized. So sometimes I need to bump it up a little bit. I will say they add quite a bit of bulk to the page, as you can see. They are sticking up off of the pages behind them quite a bit, and they make the overall journal thicker. Now, I'm not super worried about that, because Archer and Olive journals always come with this rubber band part that helps you hold it together. I've also seen that some people will take some extra pages out of the back to reduce bulk, but ultimately I just don't think it will bother me. If it does start to bother me, then I guess I will have learned something, and next year I won't do that. And I'll make sure it's not bulky in my journal. If you wanted to do something similar but you didn't want these thick Velcro stickers, first of all, I'm sure there are smaller ones on Amazon. This is just what I happen to already have. But you could also just use washi tape and use that to kind of rearrange, because washi tape is repositionable. I thought about doing that, but I was also worried that after a few times, the washi tape would lose its stickiness. So I'm trying out the Velcro thing, and I'll definitely let you know how it goes. For this font, I used the dot markers from my Stationery Haul because they allow me to get like a really even thickness, perfect for bubble lettering. And I didn't have a ton of space here, so I knew I needed the letters to be taller than they were wide. And then I just outlined that with my Pigma Micron and added a little detail, and I think it came out so good. It's always satisfying when I actually pull off a hand-drawn font in the journal. It's not my forte, so when I find one that's easy enough for me to do, it feels really good. And I love the overall effect of these pages. So that is it for my 2025 reading journal. I hope you enjoyed seeing each spread and hearing a little bit about how I made each one and how I plan to use them. I hope this gave you some good ideas for your own reading journal as well. Give this video a thumbs up. Send us a like if you liked, anything that happened here today. If you were into any of this, give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment and let me know which spread is your personal favorite. And also, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It really means a lot to us. Every single subscriber is just so exciting for us. So thank you for doing that. And check out our free printables and also our Etsy shop. We got all kinds of things for you to check out. And with that, until the next video, I'll see you soon.